everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. I'm Vishaka Vinze, and I'm delighted to be your host for today's webinar Beyond Design Why Compliance First Discovery is Your Competitive Edge. As the health tech landscape continues to evolve, we have seen a significant shift over the past year in how teams approach product development. More and more organizations are recognizing that the discovery phase is not just an initial checklist item, but it's the foundation for building safe, compliant, and scalable digital health solutions. With increasing regulatory expectations, complex clinical workflows, and multi system integrations, getting discovery right has become essential. And that's exactly why today's session is so important. Before any design sprint is planned or a single line of code is written, getting discovery right help teams move faster, reduce rework, and build with confidence. And now moving ahead, let me quickly introduce MindBrowser. We are a healthcare focused technology consulting company, and for over 13 years, we have been helping clinicians, founders, and health systems build reliable digital health solutions. In this journey, we have developed a number of healthcare accelerators and frameworks that support real clinical workflows and reduce rework for engineering teams. And on the screen, all you can see a strategic partnership ecosystem. So, moving ahead, let's meet our panelists for today. Joining us today is Ayush Jain, CEO of MindBrowser. Ayush is Berkeley alumnus, a TEDx speaker, and an author. He wrote the book The Zero Hiccup Way. He's also the host of HealthTech with Purpose podcast. As CEO of MindBrowser, Ayush has helped build scalable software solutions for hospitals, clinics, and digital health companies with a strong focus on creating practical, impact driven health tech products. And our second panelist for today is Vishwajit Sande, VP of Delivery at MindBrowser. Vishwajit brings over 12 years of experience leading digital product delivery across healthcare, SaaS, and AI. He has successfully delivered more than 100 projects and is deeply focused on making delivery smooth, transparent, and human centered, especially in complex, regulated healthcare environments. Now, before we kick off this session, let's make it a little interactive. And on the screen right now, you will see poll. Please take a few moments to answer this poll question, and we can see a lot of answers coming in. So, yes, I'm ending the poll now and sharing the results. Ayush, would you like to share some of your insights on this?
But I was just saying that pretty split polls, between compliance being part of early stage discovery or after design phase or only when required by regulators. So I think, that's how we've seen anyways, in the practical world as well. It pretty much mirrors that, like, there's a mix always, some just like, innovation, I'd say everybody's at a different stage. But let me start today's discussion with a question. A simple question. How many of you have seen a digital health product with a great demo but struggling to get customers? I can tell you I've seen those stories often. And, not because that the teams lack talent, but because compliance shows up too late. And then the moment a product enters the enterprise sales cycle, it faces that hiccup like security compliance, EHR integrations, all the kinds of questions that come up. And, like, it's very frustrating for almost all founders or leaders. And this is a common occurring for all healthcare products. So, Vish, if you can switch the slide. Yeah, thank you. So, why do most health tech builds stall? Because most products don't stall because team isn't capable. They stall because reality shows up too late. In fact, like making pretty UI for readiness is one of the fatal mistakes many times in healthcare. Like a demo could be looking perfect. It may even pass the basic consumer test. But when it comes to enterprise buyers, they are not buying it for some reason. Hospitals are not buying, clinicians are not buying. And, like people get very puzzled. Why is it happening? But it is happening because, such buyers are buying systems because that has to survive security, compliance, workflow reviews. Similarly, like when it comes to compliance as an afterthought, like HIPAA, high trust, FDA, infosec, usually they are entering after the MVP. And when these changes have to be done, they become all the more expensive. Another thing that we've seen very commonly is that underestimating the workflow complexity. Like clinical workflows are full of exceptions. There are handoffs, overrides, edge cases, and these rarely appear in early designs. So when these things surface late, teams don't just slow down, they go backward. And you find like basically these are not engineering failures, but they are kind of discovery failures which can be planned better. And that's the whole context of today's webinar. Vish, can you please switch to the next slide? Yeah. So the idea behind compliance-driven development is to set this foundation right. Not only taking care of UX and UI, but also because healthcare demands workflows, compliance. So we always imagine that discovery of a healthcare product, the discovery stage is more like a wheel with four cars. It cannot work if two or three of the wheels work, but it can only work when all of the wheels basically work together. So for other industry, while design first discovery could be enough because it optimizes for speed of demo or investor presentation or getting early users excited. Uh, but for healthcare, it is very different. And that's why, like our healthcare industry is unique. So for healthcare, it has to be optimized for enterprise procurement, for health IT reviews, for Epic or Cerner integrations, for long-term scalability. Because when you do all of that together, then you're really talking the language of your buyer. So healthcare language is complex and it means that you are ready with all of this, when you have this great meeting set up, you have to be ready with all of these things, otherwise you are pretty much pushed into we'll see next time kind of situation, which of course anybody wants to avoid. So while that's where most delays and deal losses, this is where it happens. And again, as I said, very common, yet an occurring that we see almost all the times. Next slide, please. So the biggest wins in healthcare product development cannot come from writing more code. It can only come through making these early decisions right. And just like I've mentioned on this slide, like small workflow tweaks can actually save a lot of months of work. So changing a role, approval step, or handoff early, all these things have to be thought through. Similarly, mapping compliance upfront, is super important, like identifying PHI touchpoints, access rules, or audit needs. They can be taken care of earlier than later, and then it can avoid those redesign requirements later. And prototypes, are super important in health. So if you are building any idea, it has to show and tell. So visual prototypes that can align with clinicians, with IT and compliance would always be useful. I love this line, which my team always says, that discovery is the cheapest way to fix the costliest problems. And that's the whole truth. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So, what we have learned so far is that compliance isn't a phase that you reach later. It is a design constraint right from day one. So, it has to be part of the whole design valuation, design journey. And every person who is part of that team, the journey, has to be making sure that all of these pieces fit together. Because in healthcare, design doesn't lead to compliance. Compliance actually leads to design. So always remember that HIPAA will shape your UI. Like whatever appears on screen is going to be dictated by who's allowed to see it and not by the visual preferences or what seems good, basically. Similarly, like you have to design in line with fire endpoints, with ADT triggers, with scheduling APIs. So again, lot of third-party dependencies could also come in, or the need for interoperability has to be, thought through, so that again you are not changing things when you actually go production. And thirdly, product designed with regulatory and data realities, when done right, they launch faster with fewer surprises and basically more design wins. So again, that's something, like I think every leader wants to create this journey hiccup free or predictable. So, by making sure these things happen, you're basically designing without compliance context would create real progress and avoid any false progress thoughts. So, we can switch. Yeah. So, like just summarizing, where we have got till now. So primarily, like I think, Vish, are you one slide ahead of me? Can you go back? Yeah. So primarily, yeah. So today, we'll talk about like how discovery in healthcare cannot be led by generic design and what difference it makes when compliance happens hand in hand, and how each of these aspects comes together, like clinical workflows, coding, prior authorization, integrations, regulatory boundaries, and we'll be going through with a case study which Vish is going to take over. And from theory, let's move towards a more real world example. So over to you, Vish.
Thanks, Ayush. Yeah. So let me walk you through a real engagement that shows what a compliance first discovery actually looks like in practice. So this was a digital health platform focused on helping patients track their health activities on day-to-day basis. We also wanted to have like allow the clinicians to monitor the progress in real time. So when the client came to us, they had a very clear product vision. Their early UI concepts were in place, and of course there was an interest that was there from this the provider organization, a best case scenario for any doctor entrepreneur or any entrepreneur to have an interest from the market. But what they were really planning to do was they were planning to enter the enterprise health systems, which meant like all the EHR integrations. So primarily the focus was on Epic. So we wanted the Epic based workflows to be there in place. The strict compliance reviews were going to be like coming ahead, and also there would be security audits. But having said that, whenever teams see that, okay, there is a vision, UI concepts, and interest, what any typical team would have done at any this stage would have just directly jumped into design. They would have started building the product and then go for a demo. If we ourselves would have done that, definitely the results would have been like we would have come up with a great UI, which everyone would have loved, all the roles everyone would have loved. The build would have been of the top notch quality, and the demo of course would have rocked in front of the investors or the customers. But the product would have really struggled during the security, compliance, and EHR integration reviews. And this isn't something we are seeing for the first time, but we have always seen that when the focus goes towards all of these things over security and compliance, these issues actually surface at a later point of time, which is again you are into 4 or 5 months into development. So instead of going with that typical approach of or the usual path for discovery, what we did is we took a step back and we actually slowed down. And this was an intentional step that we did as a part of discovery. And we structured the discovery around buildability and compliance and not just like going through the features. So as a first step, what we did is we actually took a step back from looking at the screens and features, and instead we started focusing on the workflows and rules. So we mapped how the product would be actually used. It could be the patient actions, the provider touch points, then the clinical handoffs, then the broader care and admin roles around it. So the exercise actually immediately changed the conversation. So instead of asking how the screen should look like, now the conversation was more around how, like, who is allowed to see what data. At what point does a patient generated data become the part of a medical record? and what actions need to be auditable. What are the actions which we can skip for auditing as of now? So these questions don't come up naturally when you start with directly jump into the building the UI, but these are like foundational in the regulated healthcare space. So by addressing them at a very early stage, we avoided building workflows that would have later failed eventually in the compliance and security reviews. Once these workflows and everything was in place, then we moved to the next step, which was grounding the product in the EHR reality. As I said, like our focus was more towards epic workflows and so on. So that was a very important aspect for us. So we started mapping. If you see the diagram here, there are these like the resources from EHR that are mapped along with what all things, data points we need from for a particular patient record and so on. So we mapped what data truly needs to live inside the EHR and what could safely stay outside. Again, that safe is a keyword here, because even if something stays outside, is it really stored in that compliant manner or a secure way? So we also looked closely at what fire resources were actually available, not like hoping it could be available at a later point. That's what the usual path does. So that was one of the key difference what we are looking at here. And just importantly, we identified which workflows required near real-time updates, because the providers wanted to look at the real and real-time data of the patients. So we mapped those things versus what are the data points that can be batch processed and which was acceptable to the providers. So this was a very, very critical step for us throughout this entire discovery process. It prevented us from designing features that looked great in demo, but simply couldn't supported by an EHR or a real enterprise conversation. So in other words, we designed for what was buildable and not just what was desirable. And once this mapping was in place, we moved to the third step, which was the most critical one, is we brought in security and compliance as a part of that entire process, where we started identifying that where the PHI would be tested across the system, what access controls were actually required for different roles, what was needed to be audit logged, and where the clear data flow boundaries had to exist. And this wasn't just theoretical. These inputs actually directly shaped the product. So, for example, like how the screen layout should be, because the permissions affected how a user could see the data. So the screen layouts were affected by all of this. We also had this definition of what are the user roles, what are the access controls, what are the access models required for each of these roles. They also defined how the API design should be, and overall structurally, it also guided our overall deployment architecture. So compliance wasn't something we validated at the end, but it actively influenced how the product was designed and built from the very beginning, from the initial step. And once all of this was done, what we saw really as an outcome was really significant, because the compliance shaped discovery early. So there was no major redesign throughout the entire MVP. In fact, what we built really held up. We were also able to align much faster with the enterprise IT security teams. So whenever there were these EHR related discussions, those were cleaner, smoother, and more confident, because the fundamentals on which the product was built was really thought through. And just importantly, again, the roadmap was built to scale. So this was something which was going to support the real enterprise adoption. And the biggest impact of all is client avoided 3 to 6 months of rework cycle. Like we often see when the compliance is addressed late. So this is a typical cycle of 3 to 6 months where there is a rework that happens. So all in all, it was more of like a time saved. Then there was a cost that was avoided, and the momentum was preserved. So all because the right questions were asked at a very, very early stage. So let me close my part with this visual, because it really captures the point I'm trying to make here. Is if you see on the left, there is this image where a traditional or a typical discovery stage goes, where the focus is more on UI and the API designs, and then at a later stage, the security and the compliance review comes into picture. What happens in this case is the domino starts falling backwards. So early decisions that were taken, those starts getting questioned. The designs need a lot of rework. The APIs get changes, and a small miss, which is at the start, that turns into a large disruption at a later point. So now, if we look at the image on the right, the compliance, this is like for the compliance first discovery. So where the compliance and security reviews are the initial two dominoes, and then followed by the rest, which is the API, UI. It could be like the other database designs and so on. So what happens in this case is the domino still moves, but this time they are moving in the right direction. So the key takeaway here is that compliance doesn't slow down the teams. It's just that the order matters really. So when you place the right dominoes first, everything that follows becomes easier, cleaner, and more scalable. And with that, I would like to hand it back to Ayush so that he can summarize it further.
Thank you. I think Vish, you pretty much covered very well, and just putting some ending thoughts here. But before that, I'll just mention that we may have time to say take some questions. So anybody who have any specific questions you'd like us to cover today, can put it into the Q&A, and based on the time we can probably take few. So yeah, like just piggybacking from where Vish left with the thoughts, I'd say that when you are looking at the holistic picture, eventually you require say a cross-functional team. Discovery is no more just a UX exercise, but health really requires a cross-functional team, which includes clinical, compliance, engineering, product, all sorts of knowledge coming in, and building those patterns, accelerating the discovery, and getting things done. Like something I shared earlier when I started as well. I'll go back to the same quote, that discovery done right is the cheapest place to fix the most expensive problems. So teams that practice compliant first discovery, are able to build less but build right, and avoid costly rework, move faster through enterprise approvals, and that's the most important thing, I'd say, being able to sell your product to the right customer, and then gain trust earlier with health systems, because you're able to speak the language, you are able to answer all the red flags thrown at you as part of your GTM, and that makes all the difference. Next slide, please. Yeah, so discovery is definitely a growth multiplier with compliance. It's not just a phase, but it's the foundation for a health product, for buildability, compliance, and scale. And a pro tip would be that follow a checklist always, like for readiness, for workflow mapping, for compliance alignment, making sure that, you're checking all the boxes while building your healthcare product. So, beyond UI and UX, make sure you have a ready list for your HIPAA, for your scalability, for your architecture, good practices all put together. And we may be able to help you there. In fact, I think so. Like, I think there's a surprise if I don't want to go too far. So, Vishaka, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Ayush. So the floor is open for QA session. Uh,
In the
if
meantime, do
anyone
you want to
is,
share the surprise? I think there's a
that
surprise
would be
with
great.
Julian's feedback. So while we take questions, so one, like one, we are offering free one-to-one consultation with Vish, my fellow speaker today. So he has been like doing compliance-driven discovery for long, and like great guy with great ideas. So, any question, or if you are seeking an expert to help you through this journey, he would be the guy. So there's a QR code that you can scan and book a meeting with him. And secondly, we are also sharing a HIPAA compliance guideline. where we put in all the best practices, the guideline, and also the checklist that you can follow to be compliant. So we'll be sending that over to you post webinar.
Yes. Thank you so much, Ayush. This is an exciting offer, a good big holiday getaway offer. So, yes, audiences, if you have any questions or any queries, please feel free to post them in the QA section, and we will try to cover as many as questions possible due to time limit, and the rest of them will reach out to you via emails.
So no questions. That's also a good situation, I'd say. So I think again we are pretty much available. Post the session. If you have anything you'd like to discuss, feel free to reach out over LinkedIn, over email, and also you'll hear from the team in regard to the compliance guideline that we intend to share with all of you. So yeah, over to you, Vishaka, to close.
Yes, all right. So, this brings us to the end of the session. Thank you everyone for joining us today and being part of this session. We truly appreciate your taking the time to be here and engage in this important conversation around building compliant, scalable, and clinically sound health tech products. A special thank you to our speakers, Ayush and Vishwajit, for sharing their insights and real world experiences, and to everyone who actually participated. As promised, we'll be reaching out shortly with the webinar recording and related assets so you can revisit the key takeaways or share them with your teams. If you have any follow up questions or would like to continue the conversation, please feel free to reach out to us. We look forward to staying connected and supporting your health tech journey. Thank you once again and have a great day ahead.
Thank you,
Thank you.
audience.